Stefan learns Gabi slept with EJ and Abigail, reveals the truth about who she is. Kayla returns to Stephanie's place with a wrench joking. Someone call for a plumber? Steve fixes Stephanie's sink, and Kayla says their daughter is one lucky lady to have him. Steve notes that he wouldn't have had to make a house call if she hadn't moved out. She thinks it is sweet that he's overprotective, but he can't help wanting his kids close given what Jack and Jennifer are going through with Abigail. They sit down for some coffee, and Kayla says she spoke with Jennifer. Jennifer is torturing herself for not believing this person is her daughter. Kayla believes she's so afraid of losing her daughter again that she won't let herself believe she's back. Steve admits it's not like DNA tests haven't been wrong at University Hospital. Kayla says she took the swab, and the only other person involved is Mark Green, and she trusts him. Steve asks if there is a chance Abigail will get her memory back. Kayla says all they can be is hopeful, and if being in familiar settings doesn't help, she'll suggest sessions with Marlena. Steve recalls his own amnesia, and that he was afraid to remember who he was. He was a fool then, but Kayla says she got him back. They kiss. In Horton Square, Chad catches Leo working on script lines. Leo asks him how things are, and Chad simply says, "Okay." Leo thought he'd be happier given his wife came back from the dead. Chad and Leo sit down, and Chad explains that Abby doesn't remember anything from their life, or about their kids. He says Stephanie is going to see her in hopes she'll remember something. Chad wants revenge on Clyde and everyone else who kept Abigail from her family. Leo asks if he has any leads, but Chad doesn't. Leo changes the subject to Everett's service, which Stephanie is planning. Chad says she didn't say anything to him. Leo says it's not like it will be a large service, as Everett didn't know many people. He lists a few off, including his friend Connie, who he never even met. Leo says Stephanie told him about it when he brought her a press release. Chad is confused, as those go through him for the paper. Leo has a confession and says he's been named the new head writer of Body and Soul. Chad congratulates him and asks if that means no more lady whistleblower. Leo thought he could do both, but he can't, and Chad should find a replacement. Chad is sorry to see him go as he liked working with him mostly. Leo says the same and tells him not to be offended if he happens to check out the show and see a storyline that feels familiar about the hero's dead wife returning to town. Chad shakes his head and says no. Chad says Leo should have asked him first, but Leo explains amnesia stories have been done on soaps before. Chad says they did a DNA test on Abigail. So where is the drama in this story? Leo explains that in the soap world, DNA tests can be faked, but Chad counters that his life isn't a soap. Leo assures him that he wants him and Abigail to have a happy ending. Chad thinks they have come a long way, and he wants to see Leo happy too. Leo admits it's been hard getting over Dimitri, and the only person he's been interested in is Mark Green from the hospital. But it turns out he wasn't gay, or so he guesses. Chad asks what he means. Leo explains he overheard him talking to someone on the phone, and he said it was his girlfriend. He says whoever she is, she's a very lucky lady. At the hospital, Mark takes a call from Abigail. She says she convinced Chad to move back home with the kids, and now that she can breathe, they need to figure out the next steps of their plan. At the Dimera mansion, Abigail turns around while on the phone and sees Stephanie has walked in. Abigail says she'll call them back and will talk soon. She introduces herself to Stephanie, who in turn says she's her cousin. Stephanie didn't mean to interrupt her call as it sounded important, and she was talking about the next steps in her plan. Abigail claims she was talking to her doctor about the next steps in her get well plan, and Dr. Johnson is awesome. Stephanie feels the same, as she's her mom. Abigail thinks she should have known that and asks about their connections outside of family. She knows Stephanie moved in with her husband and children after she died. Stephanie apologizes for that and says it was so difficult for Chad to move on after her death. Abigail says she doesn't have to explain. She was supposedly dead and he had every right to move on. Stephanie reveals Chad never got over her, and that's why they didn't work out. She says Chad is the reason she's here. He asked her to come see her. Chad thought maybe her visit could spark some memories, as they were very close when they were younger, and she knows some of her deepest secrets. Stephanie shares some of her past as a race car driver and her relationship with Max. She says Abigail always looked out for her and was her best friend and the best cousin she could ask for. Abigail wishes she could remember. Stephanie guesses she's feeling lost and lonely, but she'd still like to be her friend. Abigail would like that too, and they hug. Back at the hospital, Aaron is back in town. He says hello to Mark, who scolds him for pretending to be Tate all summer. Aaron says he got free tuition to lacrosse camp, and this could go towards a real university scholarship. Mark asks what happens when Tate's dad wants the money back. Aaron notes Brady has loads of money and won't miss it, but eventually agrees to find a way to pay it back. Mark reveals Brady has his own problems right now as he's in jail. Aaron is stunned and feels terrible for Tate. Mark asks, "What about poor Sarah, who may never walk again?" Aaron admits car accidents remind him of their mom and dad, and it's like reliving it over again. Mark has been thinking about their parents and says they'd be proud of Aaron now that he's a senior. Aaron knows it's hard to look after him and Felicity, and he's sorry he let him down. He jokes that his brother is perfect, but Mark says he'd be surprised as he's made some bad decisions but won't discuss them. Aaron heads home. In EJ's room at the mansion, Gabi tells the shirtless Dimera that she doesn't know why she's getting cold feet, as she wants to get back against Stefan. He tells her she doesn't have to decide immediately and to think about it before the cat's out of the bag. She asks why he's being so nice. He admits he recently had his own heart broken and would do anything to make his pain go away. Suddenly, Stefan shows up looking for his brother and is shocked to find Gabi there. Gabi tells Stefan they were just, but he cuts her off, claiming he knows what is going on. Stefan thinks EJ called him in here to offer him a sympathetic ear. He insists that EJ is taking advantage of her and using her to get revenge on him. EJ mutters, "More like the other way around." Stefan tells EJ to stuff it. He says Abigail convinced him to come up and talk to her and not to give up. He asks if they can go somewhere and talk, and she agrees. EJ nudges Gabi's clothes, which are on the floor, under a rug. Stefan catches him and screams at Gabi, "Are those your clothes on the floor?" Stefan wants answers and asks if she slept with his brother. Gabi says, "Yes." Stefan calls EJ a son of a bitch and slugs him. EJ composes himself and goes to repay the favor, but Gabi steps in between them. Stefan can't believe she's defending the scum, but Gabi says, "I seduced him." Stefan asks why, as she hates him. She screams she hates Stefan even more, and she wanted to get back at him for sleeping with Ava. EJ leaves to get some ice for his jaw. Stefan is heartbroken that Gabi set out to do maximum damage to him and the relationship. He says she's succeeded and hopes she's happy. Gabi is at the point of tears. EJ walks downstairs shirtless to grab some ice and runs into Stephanie and Abigail. He says hello and leaves. Abigail wonders what happened to him. Stephanie assumes he deserved it. Abigail senses bad blood. Stephanie goes into her bad history with EJ, who kidnapped her and stuffed her in a morgue drawer. Abigail wonders why she ever slept with that guy. Stephanie jokes she came to her senses. Just then, Abigail gets a message from Mark to meet in the park, and she looks troubled. Stephanie asks if everything is okay, and Abigail brushes it off and says she has some things to take care of and takes off. Back in EJ's room, Stefan holds back tears and says last night he talked through her door to her, but she was here in EJ's bed. He cries he made one drunken mistake, but this was calculated, premeditated. She admits it was. Stefan can't believe he's been killing himself to make this up to her. He says she can never take this back, and on the verge of tears herself, Gabi asks if that means he's given up fighting for them. He responds, "That's exactly what it means." Gabi admits when she woke up she had regrets. She thought she was being too hard on him. She even thought, maybe I still love him. Gabi considered lying to him, just like he lied about Ava, but that would make her as guilty as him. She's glad fate had him walk in and remind her what an ass he is. EJ returns as she tells Stefan, "For the record, your brother is better in bed than you are." Stefan says they deserve one another and storms out. EJ checks on Gabi, but she tells him not to touch her. He applies ice to his face as Gabi appears regretful and fights breaking down. Stephanie returns home to find her parents necking. She fakes calling 911 on her parents for hooking up in her living room. They say they were leaving, and her disposal is fixed. Kayla wants them to get together for a family dinner soon. Stephanie tells them about her visit with Abigail, and is glad to hear about them working on a treatment plan. Kayla is confused, and when Stephanie tells her about the call she walked in on, Kayla insists she hasn't spoken to Abigail today. Stephanie says that is strange as she said she was talking to her. Abigail meets with Mark in the park. She explains she had to hang up earlier because of Stephanie, and she covered. Abigail tells him how sweet Stephanie is, and this is becoming really hard. They embrace. Mark asks if she's okay. She is, but she hates being inundated with this fake family. He reminds her that her real family is here for her. She thanks her bro, and he tells his sis that she's welcome. Next on Days of Our Lives, Eric returns just as Brady's poised to make a huge mistake.